Welcome to Bouquet Jazz Dance. I want to share with people my acts of achievement. I'm creating learning materials showing you that yes, we can create a grassroots movement to share with individuals our legacy of leadership, our acts of achievement. I want to share with individuals some notes. I've been writing down here my acts of achievement. Blue UK Jazz Dance, basically I provided a new and alternative dance, alternative activity and development that enhanced my escapism, developed my euphoria, gave me ecstasy, enhanced my health, my well-being, who I was, etc. Provided entertainment for me as a person in this world and entertainment for others. It led to me developing a new education. It led to me empowering myself in the world. I realized that there was different ways that one could empower themselves through dance, and I was doing it as envisioned. It led me to education, a new type of education, and re-education, which is very important. I realized that most important is a traumatized child. I could use this activity to enhance myself and enhance other people, which I did as an individual through giving full commitment to it as an individual. And I identified my dance leadership journey enabled me to develop a dance leadership journey where this escapism was used and euphoria, etc. was 0 to 6 years, my early learning years, 6 to 8 years, which was important years when I went to primary school, got bullied. People left me for dead on the toilet seat as an individual, and I had to go to the Caribbean to recover. The first rehabilitation intervention that my family engaged themselves in, I used it to escape that. 8 to 11, I had to return back to the victims, that the culprits who tried to kill me, which is important how I did that. Basically, this dance made me resilient as an activity, so it was an alternative activity that brought me, made me understand that dance made me resilient. Dance eased my pain in who I was. Dance shaped employability skills is one of the key things that came about as an individual. Dance improved my health and well-being and my movement. It improved my sports ability, amazing sports ability. Dance enabled me to discover the world, which is very, very important for people to understand. And it led to me doing international exchanges, and I stood out. For sure, 100%. When I went away as individuals, these are some of the work I was doing as an individual, because I introduced people to what a black youth. Now, when I went into Europe, I was very young when I first went there. One, I was 13 years old when I went into Europe. That's the one. People were shocked. I was teaching in Spain. I met loads of people around the world. I got money through teaching people disco dance and win disco dance competitions. I could lecture, I could talk on UK jazz dance, because what happened was I'm very much a connoisseur, record collector. I had brothers that are older than me. My community in music was very serious. Music is political. It was different to other people who liked my black music. It wasn't as political. But when we talked about music, we were there in the time of sound system being developed. I was there, founder of the disco dancing, because we made our own disco dancing. You brought the music came to us, and we made up our own dance. And that created a new type of culture. As an individual, I talked about drumming. They didn't know nothing about the drumming to do with the dance as an individual. They didn't know nothing about the fashion as an individual. They didn't know how we used it for youth. As I said, I did a lot of international exchanges. I worked with Chinese people, Asian people. I was teaching them dance people on an unprecedented scale. And what happened, some of the best work I ever did was discovering the world, the international world. The dance drove me to look at all the Caribbean islands, their drumming and dancing. It taught me to look at the USA. It taught me to look at Russia. It taught me to look at vaudeville. It taught me to look at, I worked with so many international students in the UK through a thing called Student Empowering Students. Incredible. People would never know that existed as an individual. It's important for people to understand the existence of what dance can do as an individual, as a youth exchange activity. And I did a lot of that work with international students that came here and visitors as individuals that came to the UK. Manchester was a place where 91 to 2003, we had Nays Centre, the first international African Caribbean centre for music, dance, entertainment. I used to enable people, when people used to come here, I used to look after them in my home, all that, and tell them where to go, restaurants, help them, support them. I became a consultant as an individual. 2000, 2003, I think 2002, we had the Commonwealth Games. I made a lot of money through that. Again, people came from around the world. I introduced them to what was happening in the underground as an individual, showed them the cuisine where we cook food, told them about our culture, became very strong pen pals as individuals. and went back, and then I went back into university to develop my own activities as individuals. Yes, we can share with international students our culture, because I had already done it, and they're the things I came back and I was doing that in university. I created student empowering students and students empowering community. I came from a different community in Oxford. I was Oxford for 5 years, and I worked in the community, and it was important I did, because very few black people from Oxford are actually at Oxford Brookes University. That's important. So when they met me, they were saying, how did you get to Oxford University? Black people thought it was something that's not achievable for them. I said it was. I walked into Oxford Brookes not with qualifications. Twice or 3 times I've gone into qualifications, into higher education with no qualifications. What I had was vocational experience, and I could write on how my vocational experience fit into academic studies. That's all you need to know, and I know people have that experience as an individual, and it was important for me to do that as an individual, and I continue to do that as an individual, and I continue as an individual to push the boundaries of people's knowledge, because here's me involved in other projects. I involved myself in experimental projects, and them experimental projects came from the love of jazz. So people said, how did you connect these two? Well, what happened was, there was lack of, when my culture was lost in Manchester, which was the avant-garde scene, the number one avant-garde scene between 83 and 86, actually from 75 to 86, you might as well call it Manchester, the avant-garde scene. And before that, Manchester 46 to 72 had the best modern jazz scene ever. And we didn't know that there was a connection. And when dub music came, there was a connection with the reggae music was related to modern jazz, because the dub selectors, the dub musicians, but who made the music were influenced by modern jazz, cool jazz, modern jazz, and modern jazz. You get me? We didn't know the connections because we didn't have no history to do with black music, not in our homes neither. We had to make them connections, and I was the one who started to make the connections. So people said, what's the connection between the jazz? This teacher was born he was part of the movements. He was born in 1888. He was part of jazz. And what happened, a lot of jazz musicians were trying to find themselves through jazz. So what happened was, UK jazz dancing, blue UK jazz dancing is me. It's finding myself. I had to distinguish myself from others. I'm not the same. I'm an individual, came from the north of England, Manchester, born in Moss Side slums. I had a totally different history, a Jamaican father, a Jamaican mother, and I was the first person to start to create learning materials around that. This is where my mum comes from, Pomrose, St. David. My dad comes from St. Anne's. My dad went to America 55 to 61, lived in the southern states. He can tell you about what it's like, the racism, because he lived there. He told me about the music, the dance. You can't conceive many black people living in a kibbutz together, and what happened, they brought their music and dance. Jamaicans were in Cuba. Jamaicans are all over the world, and people don't have that knowledge in Europe and played a contributory part, because Europe made sure and Britain made sure we never got that history. Our historians are still the historians. So it shaped me having a quote. Our history is not history till we celebrate it. Our legacy is not legacy till we celebrate it in true context to its experience, sharing its true significance. The true significance, people around the world don't know anything about UK jazz dance. They don't know anything about blue UK jazz dance. So what I did, I created an Instagram. What did I do? I created Facebook. What did I do? I put talks up on the web for you to see, for you to delve in yourself. So you have an understanding, and advanced talks I put up, and I'm creating acts of achievement, learning materials for you to understand, and giving you understanding. This art form is in Japan. This art form is in India now. This art form is Korea. Why? Due to a lot of northern dancers. That's why. Them pushing the boundaries of their learning, their thinking and development, which is very important. Most importantly, I've put up, look, what's important for people to understand. Blue UK Jazz, do you want to learn about dance and health movement, lifestyle in UK? Well, I started this art form to maintain my health and well-being as a shy child, people who had been persecuted, had been bullied. I created a one-boy show, and that one-boy show led to me wearing many leadership hats, which I wasn't aware of. I produced, I created it, I wrote it, I directed it, I produced it, I did everything to do with it, and I was unaware of the significance that was going to have as a special education needs person. When I went into higher education, when I went into other areas of learning, I had a lot of confidence, more than most people who had more than me. So what I realized, money is not the key to learning. Confidence is the key to learning, because you can self-learn. And what happened, the dance, UK jazz dance, I self-trained myself. And what happened, the self-training meant I went and found books. I became a self-learner. I became a self-thinker. I started to think, oh right, we've got libraries in Manchester. I lived in libraries, self-learning, for myself and develop self-help, which came from my parents. And all these values to learn for myself came from my parents. And I've always continued to do that and gone on to move. And then what happened, I met people who had less than me. I enabled them to have confidence. They lacked confidence. They lacked what I call, this is where the word came, yes, we can. It's because I helped a lot of people, and a lot of people helped me. My teacher, Thomas Alaji J. Ojueso, I told him I had a dream what I want to do with Latin jazz. He said to me, yes, we can do what you want to do. Because he had the knowledge, he was my coach, he was my mentor. We have a saying, each one teach one. Tommy loved to see me dance. He loved to see me dance jazz. He couldn't believe it because he'd never seen her dancing before. You know what I mean? So he was responsible for my direction and what I wanted to do as an individual. He gave me the confidence to believe, yes, I can. He gave me the confidence to do lectures on look before you leap. Because people were going into the creative culture industries and not looking and got ripped off and got bad experiences and left it. Because I had Tommy told me what to do. So I just followed him. I never followed the commercial industries yet. I followed the arts. The arts always leads to dignified outputs of your art form. The arts always leads to raised prestige of your art form.